In this video, we're going to go one step further with the CSS. You'll notice here that I have changed the H1. I've also made changes to some other elements, such as here in the H2, I've made that change. I've also added a little bit of a background color. Whenever you want to do something in the background, all you need to do is select an area and then tell the CSS what you want to have it do in the background. So for example, in this one, when I click on the text box or the div tag that you see here, I can see here that it's called div main content. And when I go over here to the snooker rule for main content, I can then define things like the color. In this particular case, the text is undefined because I don't want to change the text color, but I do want to change the background. So when you want to change the background, you go to this area and you can see that I have already set it to this hashtag FFFCC, which is a kind of cream color for my corporate color. But you will notice that it did not change this area. And whenever you're trying to find an area and you can't figure out what it is, the easiest thing to do is to click on one area that shares the same content and then to go up from there. So here I know that main content is colored, and then I have this floating text box here. And then if I go up one more again, I have another div container. So I think the one that I want to work on here is this, and you'll see here when it's highlighted, if I go over here, div container, okay, I can see that it has not been changed. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm on the div container here. I can see here it says snooker hashtag container. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define the background color. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to type in once again that cream colors. And then when I have my hex code dialed in, all I need to do is hit enter. And it's going to affect that change. Now whenever I want to see what something looks like in the live mode, I can very easily do that by sliding over here into live mode. It's going to give me an opportunity to see my new changes in font, and you'll notice here that I made some font changes to the standard text. Now whenever I make a change to the CSS, it's going to affect all of my HTML pages because I've already defined them as linked together. So if you take a look at the menu document, I can see that it has been changed, as well as the about.htm. Now if I return to the menu document, here's that nasty background image that was really bothering me earlier. Is that black and white one that really does need to change. But before I change that, I need to change the font within this area here, because if I change the background image to something really intense, I'm not going to be able to see those letters. What I'd like to do in this case is I'd like to change this font to the cream, and I'd like to make it a little bit bolder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, LI and UL, because it's going to include the entire area. Over here where it says color, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dial in. So I've dialed in the color for this. However, I'm not really happy with the font choice because I think it needs to be a bit heavier. So I'm going to go into font family, and I'm going to choose something that I know will be a little bit bolder. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go into Manage Fonts. I'm going to go back to a list of sans serif fonts, and I'm going to choose something that has a little bit more weight. Now when I go back into my font family, I'm going to select Alerta. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to change this background image. So once again, I'm going to click on the div container that I wish to change. And now what I want to do is I want to go over here to see what the background is currently. Right now, I have a background that has a URL link, and you'll see here it says assets/burger1.gif. Let's see what it looks like if we change the background image. All I need is to click on this link. I end up with this browse folder, and here I can switch it to a different background. So I'm going to try it with this charcoal background here. I'm going to say OK. And here I can see what it looks like with this particular charcoal image. And here, I think that looks really neat. I now have a background image for this very special div tag. And if I want to make it a little bit smaller, all I need to do is place my cursor here and then click delete. I could also make it a little bit wider here and place a carriage return at the start of starters here, just to give it a little bit of a little bit more cushion. All right, so now I've made some changes here with my different backgrounds. Let's go ahead and try this menu navigation bar and see if we can do the same thing. I'm going to go over here to my background. I'm going to enter the file path. I'm going to select the same background image. So I've made a change to that background image, and now it can be seen here. So let's take a look at what this looks like in the live view. So once you've made changes to your site, you can take a look at it and start thinking about how does it look together, how does it work, do you need to make changes that you might have missed, like for example in this case here I have an H3 that I didn't have affected. You go through, make your changes, go into the properties panel here, change the color, perhaps this time I'd like to go back to my corporate orange, and then make changes accordingly. When you start wondering how to make changes, and if you can't quite figure it out, place your cursor where you want to change and go from there. If you still can't figure it out, click on an element and then start going higher and higher. For example, if I want to change this background item here, all I need to do is click on any item in the page and then start scrolling through. I know this is a paragraph tag, I've got a sidebar div tag, I've got a floating tag, I've got a container, and then I've got the body. So if you want to change the body, for example, and that's this main area here, what I could do then is go into the background and I could add an element to it. So let's go say into the background here. I could go in, make a selection, and then what I could do is I could test it all in the live view. When you're ready, go ahead and save your document, save all of your changes, and then I'm going to show you in the next video how you can launch and test your site in live mode.